Iowa City is a unique community. This uniqueness is shaped by the people who contribute their time, their energies, and their ideas to Iowa City and the university. Welcome to a series of biographical interviews of special women and men who have affected this community. Their contributions have been valuable, their lives creative and full. What brought them here? Who influenced them? What contributions are they the most pleased about? These and other questions will be explored during this series of interviews entitled, Tell Me Your Story. Chalmers Elliott, fondly known as Bump, is the University of Iowa's very successful athletic director. Under Elliott's leadership and guidance, the Iowa athletic program has become one of the best in the nation. Mr. Elliott has had a long and distinguished career. He was an athlete himself, playing halfback in college and earning All-American honors at Michigan. After serving as head football coach at Michigan for 10 years and assistant athletic administrator for 2, Bump came to Iowa in 1970 as Iowa's athletic director. He was the guiding force in turning the program around. His many honors include the Rose Bowl Hall of Fame, the College Football Hall of Fame, an endowed scholarship in his name awarded to a U of I student athlete, and just last year, a street on the U of I campus was named Elliott Drive in his honor. And all through these successes, Bump has retained a friendliness, a spirit of generosity, and a sense of humility. As Iowa's football coach remarked in an interview, quote, Bump is a class person. Welcome to Tell Me Your Story. Let's begin your story during your early years. Your grandfather was a Presbyterian minister in Muscatine, and your father, J. Norman Elliott, was an athlete before he headed off to medical school. Is it true that he told you not to go into coaching?
Yes, as a matter of fact, but that was many years after what you had just described about my grandfather. He he's Canadian by descent, and came into the United States through Chicago and then into Muscatine, Iowa as Presbyterian minister, and was there quite a few years. And many fond stories about Muscatine, Iowa came down through the family because my father's side of the family were great storytellers. My father then did move with his father, the minister, to Bloomington, Illinois, and they meaning my father and my mother, and also went to Illinois Wesleyan University at Bloomington, Illinois. And then from there, he went on to medical school at Northwestern. And so, yes, he was in athletics, participated in high school to a great extent, and was one of probably the best athletes that they've ever had at Illinois Wesleyan. He participated in 4 sports for 4 years, and was quite an accomplished athlete.
It must be a gene that's passed on in this family of the Elliots.
I'm not sure of that, Ellen. You know, I don't mean to prolong it, but no. A story that I could recall about my father was in medical school, and when they were in medical school, the students were told not to engage in activities that might hurt their hands or something, because that's something that would be important to their profession. And he was a pitcher and liked to play baseball in the summer, and so he went to a kind of an outlaw league over in Indiana on the weekends from medical school, and would pitch under a false name named Bullet Johnson. And he was pretty good pitcher. So anyway, he got through that and got through medical school without any scratches. But it's kind of fun, and he had a great career.
Now, he was a doctor and a coach, is that true? And
yes.
Then he had 5 children. What was it like growing up in the Depression, and you had to do both? And what were your parents' kind of expectations of you?
Well, I'm not sure about their expectations. It was a fun era because we were all young, and we thought, as a family, at least myself and my brother Pete and others, thought that when Dad was coaching at Illinois Wesleyan and practicing medicine, 2 things occurred. We all thought that he should be a coach, not a doctor. You know, that's really not important, being a medical doctor. It's more important to be a coach. I say that with tongue in cheek, obviously. Right. But at that time, you can see where our values were. The other thing is, during the Depression, he continued to practice, but few people could pay their bills, but they could pay them in produce, farm and garden produce. We had lots of corn and lots of tomatoes and potatoes and so forth. Had very little other than that, but we had a fun childhood, and yes, there were 5 of us, 4 boys and 1 girl, and we had a great time.
Why do you think he told you not to go into coaching?
Oh, I don't know. He probably felt that there's an insecurity to it, and there is a certain insecurity to it, and sometimes you question whether or not you're in the right thing because you're not really building an equity, so to speak, in a business or something for life. Obviously, he was a medical doctor, and he made the decision to be a medical doctor and give up coaching. He only coached about 3 or 4 years. But I think that the fact that he thought we'd be better off in something more stable than coaching.
Well, look at you now. Would he be proud of you? You played football at Purdue and Michigan, and you helped your teammates to a conference title and a Rose Bowl victory. Is it true that you were the only regular on Michigan's team in 1947 who played offense and defense?
I think that's true.
Is that true?
I started either on offense or defense and played both ways a good portion of the game, yes.
What did all that success on the football field teach you?
Oh, golly, I'm not so sure that I can pinpoint that. I had the good fortune of playing on a football team, and even at Purdue and at Michigan as well. But the last team at Michigan was made up of a group of people that many of them had come back from the service very dedicated academically, because they had been out of high school, they'd been out in the world, so to speak, in the war years, and came back to school with some real dedication and some goals. Along with that, there were some high school people that came up through, and they hadn't been in the service. So it was a good mixture of people, but it happened to blend into one of the best football teams I think Michigan's ever had. They had a person for almost every position that seemed to fit that position as well as you could possibly imagine. I know in my years coaching after that, I used to look for people to fill the various positions that we were using at that time when I was coaching, similar to what we had on our team. The interesting thing about the team, however, was it was very, very light and quite small. One of our offensive tackles was 189 pounds. Guards were 185. We had one end that was maybe 200 pounds. Now those linemen are going at about 250 to 280, you know, and so it's a different era and a different time, but we were small but quite quick and could move with the ball, and it was a great experience to play with that team.
Who is the coach? Excuse me.
Fritz Chrysler, not the violinist.
Oh, yeah, okay.
This is H.O. Chrysler, who had coached for many, many years and at Michigan, and he retired after that year. So, but he was a great coach, and we had a lot of fun.
You took your first coaching job at, was it Oregon?
Oregon State.
And how long were you there?
I was 3 years at Oregon State in Corvallis, Oregon. Then I came to the University of Iowa and was here 5 years with Forrest Evashevsky as head coach. And we had a great experience in those years that in 1956 it was. 56, when the Evie's first team won the Big Ten championship in the Rose Bowl. That I was involved with that team, both on offense and defense, and also we changed, and the interesting thing, changed to a unique offense that year, the wing tee offense, which is a little technical, but nevertheless was used for many years after that by other teams. And but it was a great experience to be with Evashevsky here at Iowa. And that's really basically the reason, because I had been here for when down the road a ways in making decisions as to whether I will do this or that. When an opportunity came for me to be possibly an athletic director, at Iowa. I knew Iowa. We liked Iowa, and it wasn't a hard decision to make at all.
But after Iowa, under Evashevsky, you went and you were the head coach at Michigan, and you were there quite a while.
I was actually 2 years an assistant, and then head coach for 10 years.
Oh, 10 years.
And then I was associate athletic director for a year. And then an opportunity came to come to Iowa. And, people in Ann Arbor, they think they're pretty good, like we think we're pretty good here and so forth. And some of them said to me, why would you want to go to Iowa? And at that time, the fortunes at Iowa were not real good, particularly in football. And why would you want to go there? And I simply said that we have been there before. My wife and my family, we all love it there. And we know that we can win there. Now, they say, oh, they'll never win a championship. And I said, that's wrong. I was there when they did do it before, and they can do it again. And so we're very pleased we made the decision.
Well, so is Iowa. What made you decide to leave coaching and go into administration?
I'm not sure that there was any basic thought, or was I tired of coaching? I'm not sure. It happened over a weekend, Thanksgiving weekend, when we were in Ann Arbor. I had no idea I was going to get out of coaching in 1968, and Barb and I visited over the weekend, and I said to her one place along the line that there is a job as the associate athletic director at Michigan that was created a year ago, has never been filled. And I said, that might be something that we ought to think about. And over the weekend we thought about it, and then I did make the move to give up coaching and become associate director at Michigan. And then within 1 year I had an opportunity to come to Iowa. So I'm glad I had the experience, you see. Otherwise, the opportunity to come to Iowa might never have come.
What was your top priority in 1970 when you came to Iowa?
It's pretty easy to bring people together. At that particular time, there was some tug of war going on between fans and coaches, and I think the Evashevsky-Nagel situation at that time was not healthy for the University of Iowa, obviously, at that time, because there were differing ideas and so forth. And the people of Iowa, and even within our own department, there was a little concern. There wasn't a closeness, there wasn't a warm feeling about it, and they weren't all rooting for the same thing and doing the same thing, and that's to make Iowa the best they can. So obviously it was my hope and thought that we could bring people together, not only on the outside, but first of all on the inside, our own people, and make sure that we're going in the right direction.
Well, Lou Olson, I found a quote in a newspaper article. A former basketball coach remarked that togetherness is an Elliott trademark. It's a family kind of relationship, he said. Each coach is anxious to have the others do well. That starts with Bump and his attitude, the end of quote. How did you instill that? And with a lot of egos in every department at the university and other places.
Oh, I don't know that there's any, you can't answer that question directly. I think indirectly. I've always had the philosophy that my job was a very simple job, that I didn't really have anything to do except to help the coaches succeed. Now that can be a small job or a big job, but it isn't for me to succeed or to build buildings or to whatever it may be. That's not important if our teams aren't succeeding. And success means not just success on the football field or in the basketball court, wherever it is, but success in dealing and working with the individual student athletes, encouraging them and doing everything they possibly can to see that they gain their degrees, that they graduate from the university. That's all part of the success. And when I say it's simple, it becomes complicated, but if you take the attitude that they are running their program and I'm there to help them, and as long as they run their program well, then I'm going to continue to help them with every resource we have. When they don't do it, then we're going to find out why, and maybe a change has to be made, or we correct whatever the thing is that isn't making it go. But those coaches know that they're responsible for their program. I don't look over their shoulder, and I don't ask them to do this or that. They know what they have to do, and as long as they do it and do it well, I see no reason why to change that philosophy. So again, if I want to help them succeed in any way I can, and that's really what it's all about, I think.
A good manager.
Well,
That's what a sports
I've had
writer
some pretty
said.
good people working with me, both as coaches and administrators, too.
Well, I did read another article about you that a sports writer said that you had an adroit sense of hiring the right people at the right time, and then, as you said just previously, that you kind of then get out of the way. You hire the person, and you know that they're good, and then you kind of step in the background.
And do everything you can to help them. I'm not sure. I've been very fortunate in some of the coaches that we've had here. A couple of them haven't been as good as they might have been, I'm sorry to say, but we've been very fortunate to have good people that run good programs at the University of Iowa, and that's what it's really all about. It's a people business, you know, and if you have good people running the programs, then you're going to have student athletes that are also going to reflect that.
I read also that Glenn Patton, the swim club coach, not swim club, University of Iowa swim coach, remarked that you really care about the minor sports too. He is such a big fan of yours. Is caring about the minor sports an unusual thing for an athletic director?
Well, I don't know, because I haven't been in other directors' shoes, but I do think it's really very important to have an overall program. You know, basically, football and basketball, men's basketball, they pay the bills, so to speak. Well, if they're going to pay the bills, let's pay them the best we can. Let's make sure they have the opportunity to win just as much as football or basketball. And we do pay attention to those other sports, and we do want them to win just as badly as football and basketball. And in every way, I can support them. I do the same thing. So I think it makes for a much better program throughout the whole department, to have full program and have the best possible program we can have.
What do you consider the most difficult time for you? Was it at the beginning during the building years when you came in and things were a bit in disarray, or is it the more recent controversy about athletes and academics?
Oh, I think very definitely it was early. Not only experience, having been in the position for a few years and so forth, and we had three major coaching changes. Ray Nagel, after 1 year, his contract was not renewed. Frank Lauterbur came in, also Bob Cummings, you see. And when you have a series of coaches that, for one reason or another, and I won't even go into that, but one reason or another didn't stay with us at the University of Iowa, then either the firing or letting go of a coach and the hiring of a coach are the most traumatic times you can have, and certainly you earn your money at that time, Ellen. And prior to, and those were fine people, believe me, and it just didn't go. But with the coming of Hayden Fry, we settled down in football, and it really did become a very solid program year after year after year, with all the good things that have come with it. And that's when my job became much easier, and many things fell into place at that time. Fundraising, recruiting, all kinds of things fell into place. When you discuss the so-called controversy of academics and athletics, I don't really think there is a controversy. It's much more in the newspaper and in the public eye than I think it should be. One of the things is the so-called public perception of what an athlete is, or what an athlete takes in school, or how they conduct themselves. And I'm sorry to say, it can only take a few people to make that image look pretty sour. We have so many outstanding people in our programs that are doing so well. It's really, I feel very bad about the fact that they might be lumped into the same classification of a few. So when it comes to athletics and academics, I think we're putting on a program at Iowa that's very strong in both areas. We're graduating people. Last year our graduation rate was, I believe, 63%, and the university rate was somewhere around 52%. 100%, and if we can graduate more people through athletics than the university as a whole does, I think we're at least meeting some of the responsibilities we have. We'd like to have 100%, but it doesn't all happen. And when I talk about that a little bit, in that percentage sometimes, a person that comes back to school in 6 years or 7 years, and this year we had Andre Tippett, who was an All-American football player, All-Pro football player with the New England Patriots, came back after 10 years and got his degree this spring. And so, you know, it's meaningful to those people, and we try and encourage them to do that. And so I feel comfortable, very, very comfortable, but alert to the problem of academics and athletics and the fact that maybe some schools don't have the standards that others do, and if that's true, okay. But we're not going to be satisfied until we do the very best we can all the way through.
But it's been kind of a tough year, though.
Well, it has been. You know, the trial in Chicago, which was really an agent trial, the two agents had encouraged two of our young people to sign with them prior to the ending of their eligibility. In fact, they had signed in, I believe, in the fall, and these two people played right through the season, and had we known that, they would have been declared ineligible immediately. But obviously we didn't know about it until well into the first of the year, maybe in February or so. And that was the year ahead before this trial. Anyway, the attorney in Chicago was after these people for fraud and so forth, the agents, and they brought in those two people to testify in Chicago, and at that time they were able to get a hold of a transcript of one of our athletes, and they took the transcript and just literally tore it apart. They didn't tell about the good courses that Harmon took. They only told about the bad courses, or let's say the recreation courses. And you know, everybody has to take 4 years of required physical education. It can be in badminton or something like that. And so there's no question that he had taken quite a light load. I can't deny that. But Harmon was he'd only been to school 3.5 years, and he had, you know, through the 5-year period, which we normally think 5 years now, that he had 1.5 years to go to graduate. He could do that in probably a year, and he is well on his way to graduate. But they tried to prove that because of the grade point and so forth, that he might have been ineligible at the university, because if they had proved that, then they'd say they're not at fault because they didn't declare him ineligible, what they should have done. But the story is that they didn't obviously do that, but they distorted the picture so badly that we did get negative publicity. There's no question about that. And we now have a whole lot of new things that are in there that are strengthening our program and making it tougher. In some cases, the athletes almost are being discriminated against because they can't take this course because they happen to be an athlete. And so, but anybody else in the university can.
It'll level off.
I'm sure it will.
Yeah.
But anyway, we have gone through that. We think we're in a very good position now, a strong position, and we're very proud of our student athletes.
I want to talk about something positive. Hawkeye financial giving has quadrupled since 1979, and financial support has put Iowa athletic giving at the top of the Big Ten for the past 10 years. That must make you burst your buttons. They won't, but...
Well, it makes you feel good.
Yeah.
Not only the support that is obviously there, otherwise they wouldn't be willing to support our program to that extent, but the fact is that we're succeeding, or we're winning on the field. And let me just say that the contributions and the support that we get is directly reflected on what you do on the athletic field and on the basketball court and so forth. Now, in the years prior to 79, that's Hayden Fry coming, we were doing all right, but it really jumped from that time on because of football succeeding. The same time we had Lute Olson there, then George Raveling, then Tom Davis, so we had a succession of outstanding coaches there. And obviously wrestling was continuing strong through Dan Gable and so forth. So with football and basketball, both at pretty much the top of the list, so to speak, in the Big Ten, and our other sports strong, there was a real big jump in our giving program. And I'm happy to say, to this day, it is sustaining itself, at least at the level that we were a year ago, and probably even more so, but the year isn't over with yet. So, but nevertheless, the support is still there, and there's no place like Iowa for support, believe me.
Well, congratulations. I'm going to get a little personal now. Now, you and your wife, Barbara, have 3 children. Bill, the oldest, is an investment banker, and Betsy, your daughter, is a mother and a commercial interior designer, and of course, many people know that your son, Bob, is an assistant Iowa football coach. I've always wondered, Bump, how you and Barb have managed, as a couple and as parents, to withstand the pressures in this very public position you have.
Barb has managed, she managed the family, Ellen, and in the years that I was an assistant coach and a head coach at Michigan, those were the growing years for our children in grade school and in high school. And she is just a beautiful person in taking care of the family, because I'm sorry to say the demands on a coach are a little bit more than they should be to have a very strong family life. We think we've got a very strong family, and that's due to my beautiful wife, Barbara. As far as beyond that, the pressures and so forth, we're kind of low-key people. Neither one of us gets too excited about things, although we can get worked up, no question about that. But I've got a little bit of a philosophy that may help sometimes when things don't look so good, or maybe they look real good and you think you're pretty good. Then you just sit back and say to yourself, don't take yourself too seriously. And I think sometimes that really does help a little bit to keep you on an even keel. They aren't going to be so bad that you can't work through it and survive it. And so it's been an exciting and interesting career, so to speak, to work through these things. And I guess one of the most fascinating things about being an athletic director, even a coach, but an athletic director, is that I go to the office in the morning and I may have some things in mind what we should be doing that day, and I may never get to those things because 5 other things have popped up or whatever it may be. And so it's exciting to know that you're going to get a new experience every day. Sometimes I just wish it'd be the same day after day for a while.
You're never bored in your job, are you?
It's not boring at all.
It's another job description, is no boredom in this job.
No, there isn't.
Looking back, do you have a person in your past or an event that influenced you a lot?
I'd say my father, probably, as much as anybody.
What was he like?
He was...
Did he take himself not too seriously either?
Oh, he was very modest, and yes, I think so. But he athletics, he was just excellent in, and of course we admired that. And the fact that he was an MD, a doctor, we all admired that. And to do both those things even at the same time, or have done those things, to me was rather exceptional. And he was a great leader. He had great ideas and philosophy, but again, he wasn't high-powered and good flying all over the place. He was a person that really worked very hard at his profession. One of the things that I feel sorry about, and lots of people made sacrifices during the Second World War, but my father was not admitted to, he tried to join the Navy as an MD, and he couldn't pass the physical exam. I'm not really sure what was his problem. But because of that, he was one of just several doctors remaining in Bloomington, Illinois, when the rest of them all went off into the service. And so they really did work themselves really very, very hard. And at the age of 50, he had a coronary. So, and he practiced limited after that for some years. But I really regret the fact that he didn't have as full over the age of 50 as full a life as he'd wanted to, because he loved to play golf, he'd swim and do all those things, and he couldn't do that. He was limited. But
he's a born athlete, really, wasn't
well,
he?
I think he was pretty much so. But anyway, I think he probably influenced my life as much as anybody.
Did you encourage your son about coaching or not?
I had really didn't even have a conversation with Bob. He came back to school. I would say back to school when he graduated. He was a Phi Beta Kappa, by the way. He was a pretty smart kid, a lot smarter than his father. But nevertheless, he decided he wanted to do graduate work and received an NCAA scholarship for that, and started out in business, MBA, and at the same time was a graduate assistant coach with our football team. And so he kind of got tied up in athletics and football at that time. And from there, I think he was there 2 years. From there, he went to Kent State as an assistant football coach, backfield coach, and from there on, he just stayed in it. We have never really tried to evaluate whether he should or shouldn't, although at this time in his career, he is thinking about it. There's no question about that. And that's one of the things in coaching. You can say to yourself, you just go so far, and if you don't have an opportunity to become a head coach, and that's your ambition, then you have to be satisfied with being an assistant coach, and some people aren't satisfied with that. And sometimes their opportunities are not going to be so good, and they're at the mercy of the success of the head coach. So at a certain time in there, a lot of people get out of coaching. And whether he will or not, I don't know, but he still has plenty of time to make that decision.
Well, congratulations to your family. You have a remarkable family, and you've had a remarkable career, Bump.
Thank you, Ellen.
My guest has been Bump Elliott. Lute Olson has called Bump a coach's athletic director, and he continues, a lot of athletic directors have coaching experience, but not a lot have had the success Bump has had as an athlete and a coach, and can bury their own egos and let others have the limelight. Mr. Elliott has excelled as a football player, a coach, and an athletic director. He has received many honors. He is the architect of a solid and winning athletic program. He is a man of integrity, a gentleman, and a gentleman. We in our community, the University of Iowa, and the state are grateful for his leadership and guidance over the years and feel lucky that he has made Iowa City his home.